wanna be roofing when it's wartime. Niggas love the clout chase, that's the shit they glorify. I don't even try hard, this gangsta shit immortalized. No records of a trace when your crime is organized. No man is over me, I'm highest in the morning time. Low key in the birds when I cross the state borderlines. Spin your block and horrified. Fuck you bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga, hold the line. My nutsack, I'm grabbing mine, both of mine, quit holding mine. You gon' get this work and some overtime, you know the vibe. Little nigga, you know it's me. I don't need them to notice me. When conflict get crucial, I can't help but do them bogusly. Smoke you like a stogie, beat you like you stole from me. Niggas out of body, put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot at you waking in the moment, niggas toast for you. My niggas do the most for me, that's what they supposed to. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough and test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough and test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. Gang, you know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move critically. When that shit get critical, no peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never told another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, then slide on your funeral. It ain't about the clout chase, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't critical. Cradle to the casket, the life we live is typical. God body, cause I will depart you from your physical. Niggas living fantasies, act like they was the only one. Don't talk to me about these streets, fuck you think you know me from. Just cause you related to them gangsters, that don't make you one. I ain't got no bloodline in these streets, but I can spill me some. I ain't got no mercy for this bitch, that she outside with us. They on demon time, we bring them hell and the fire with us. All this smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming and who came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all this smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming and who came with me. Gang, you know what's going, stop playing with me. What's good, what's good? Shalom, shalom, what's good, what's good, what's up, what's up? Alright, what's going on in the world? I know y'all see the title, yes, we back at it, right? Another lesson. Yeah, you know, you see the title, it's called Because I Love You, right? When a man loves a woman, right? So yeah, we're gonna get into it, right? Because a lot of times, oftentimes, you know, us Israelites get a bad rep on, you know, us, you know, as far as like our women and how we, you know, view our women and treat our women, you know, contrary to, you know, to what people, you know, think, whatever, right? But, you know, we love our women, right? And, like I said, so,
Of course, before we get started giving all praises to the Most High, we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world know as Jesus Christ, right? Um, so yeah, like I said, we love our women, every last one of them. And so yeah, we're just gonna get right into it though, without further ado, right? And and then also, getting into, you know, showing us as, men, right, how we should, be with our women, how we should treat our women, and how we should, interact with, our women folks, right? And, just understanding the relationship that, that the Most High want us to have with each other. So, but yeah, we're going to get right into it. Let's start with 1 John real quick, right? Hold on, real quick. Salakia. But yeah, so yeah, my bad. 1 John, right? Let's go to 1 John 5 and 2, right? 1 John 5 and 2. So 1 John 5 and 2, it says, by this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God, right? And of course, we're the Israelites, so we are the children of God. And so it says, by this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep His commandments, right? So it says, for this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not grievous, right? So that love, right? That, because a lot of times, people don't understand, like, people throw that word love around, like, but not understanding it's an action, right? It's an action, and to love, you have to do something, right? A lot of people just throw that word around. And it says right here, by this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep His commandments. So to love one another properly, how a man and woman should, we need to keep the commandments, right? Then it says, for this is the love of God, that we keep His commandments, and His commandments are not grievous, right? So we got to keep that in mind first and foremost, right? When we are dealing with each other, keep the commandments. Let's go to John 3, right? The book of John, really quick. Go to John 3 and 32. I mean, John 22, I'm sorry. 22. John 3 and 22. So it says that boom, boom, boom. Hold on, this the one I want, boom. Yeah, okay. Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Okay, all right, now. Oh, 1 John 3 and 22. My bad. 1 John 3 and 22. So it says, and whosoever we ask, we receive of him, because we keep his commandments. So whatsoever we ask, we receive of him, because we keep his commandments. So again, understanding how we should deal with each other, man and woman, right? And, to love, because we are the children of God. And it says to love the children of God, we have to keep the commandments, because this is the love of God. Then it says, and this is, let me see, then it says, and whatsoever we ask and receive of him, because we keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. So as we, basing our relationships, off of, how God wants us to interact with each other, doing the things that's pleasing to, his will, he's going to bless that relationship, right? That union, right? Then it says, and this is his commandments, that we should believe on the name of his son, Jesus Christ, and love one another. And that's what we do. We love one another, right? According to the commandments of God, right? And as he gave us commandments, right? Then boom, boom, boom. Let's get So yeah. So basically, like I said, so as we keep in the commandments, we're gonna love each other, because the commandments tell us how to deal with one another, right? And so let's get 1 John 4 and 21, right? Then it says, this is the commandment have we from him, that who love God love his brother also. So, and that's the thing. It says, whoso love God love his brother also. So, for like it said over here, by this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. So it goes back to keeping the commandments, and if we keeping our relationships, centered on what God wants us to do, that will keep that relationship strong, right? And so let's get now let's go to John, right? Let's go to John 13. John 13 and 34. A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I love you, that ye also love one another. Right? And that's what we're supposed to do, love one another. But oftentimes, we become so bitter towards one another, right? And, we end up in this strife, and it become a gender war, so to speak, right? But we are supposed to love one another, right? As is commanded. And it says, by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye love one another, right? So we are the people of God, the Israelites, and when they see us out on the streets, we arguing and fighting with our significant other and cursing them out, and that stuff getting on YouTube and world stuff, that's disgraceful, right? And the other nations is not looking at us as God's people, right? They looking at us like, look at these, niggas, right? So it says, by this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye love one another. So that's what we should be doing, loving one another, right? And as we do so, like I said, that will keep our union tight, because we're keeping it centered, amongst the commandments of God and how God say that we should operate, right? And we keeping the commandments, right? And you keeping it the way how God says. Because a lot of times we falter when we do things our way versus how God laid it out for us. He gave out the blueprint. He gave the manual. Just that some of us look at the manual, be like, you know what? I don't need it. Throw it to the side, right? Figure it out. So then, Let's go to 15. 15 in John, not First John, John 15 and verse 17. And it says, "These things I command you, that ye love one another." So again, he's telling us to love one another, right? And we do that through keeping the commandments, because the commandments instruct us how to treat one another, right? Then it says, let's get a, hold on 1 second, dang it, where I put it. Oh yeah, so it says, let me read it one more time though. It says, "These things I command you, that ye love one another," right? And again, I mean, that's something that we have a hard time doing, and and a lot of it goes back to what we would classify as self-hatred and all that stuff, and a lot of that stuff, kind of bleed over from the plantation days into now. A lot of sociology and stuff would tell you that, right? A lot of social experiments that they did to show like the effects of slavery and how it's trickled down to the future generations, right? So we developed this hatred and this distrust for one another, and when we actually should love one another and prefer one another, right? And so let's get Ecclesiasticus 37, chapter 37, and boom, boom, boom. Let's get verse 12. One second. Nope. Cool. So verse 12, right? But it says, "Be continually with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord," right? And that's the thing, a lot of times, we have a hard time, finding what's best for us. What circle is the right circle of friends? Hold on. Clean this up real quick. Boom. So trying to find like what circle is the right circle of friends, right? And we end up matching and being around the wrong people sometimes, and then we end up wondering why we into a lot of trouble and stuff, right? But it says, but continually be with a godly man, who thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord. So again, like women, oftentimes they look for a certain type of guy, right? Some people might say they look for the bad boy or whatever, right? And they don't look at the godly man, as the bad boy, right? They look at him as the quiet boy. And, to some of their points, if that guy sits in a pew on Sunday, he probably got a little sugar in his tank. I can say that. But be with a godly man. And the godly men of this Bible was not no softies. They were not no pushovers. They were warriors, right? Because a godly man is a warrior, right? That's the most gangsterest thing you can be, right? It don't get no gangster, right? Then it says, "But continue to be with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind." So, you on the same thing. Y'all both want to, y'all both walking that same spiritual path, right? And then, you have that, as a man, and help, leading your woman along with that, along that spiritual path, and y'all growing together, right? And it says, "But thou," I'm going to read it right, it says, "But be continually with a godly man, whom thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee." So, and then a lot of times, you gotta you know, be that, someone that can sorrow with you, someone that can, when you're going through it, someone that you can depend on, that will be there, that a shoulder you can cry on, right? And as a man, you have to be that, for that woman, because she might, because women have a lot of, stuff that they go through, a lot of emotions that they have, and sometimes you have to be that, you know, that voice of reason, right? And or that ear sometimes, right? Or decide, the person to give the advice, right? And but the point is, you dare to support and help, because it says here, it says, but be continually with a godly man who thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee, and thou, if thou should miscarry. So, be with someone be around people that that got your back when times get rough, right? So a lot of times people find out who people are when times get rough, right? You go through some stuff, and now, your money get low, and now that person, done left, right? Because you no longer can buy the finer things and go to the cool restaurants and all that. So now they up, right? So be with somebody that will, be, struggle with you. Then not only be there with the struggle, and also be, don't just be there with the good times, be there with the struggle, all that, right? And someone you can depend on, right? So, and as men, that's what we, should be. That's what we have to be, right? And so, and, like I said, because a lot of times people misunderstand a godly man, like, yeah, but no. A godly man is someone that keeps the commandments of the Lord, right? And so, that's, let's see. Oh, let's get First Kings real quick. Matter of fact, okay, First Kings chapter 2. And start at verse 2. So now this is David talking to Solomon, right? So, and this was, so it says, I go the way of the earth, and thou be strong therefore, and show thyself a man, right? So, this is, what David's telling his son, to show himself a man, right? Let's see what makes him a man, right? Because, again, we trying to understand what this godly man is, right? And how we should be towards our women. And so, it says, I go all the way of the earth, and be thou strong thereof, and show thyself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments, and his judgments, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses. Right? That's how you show yourself a man, by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments of God. Right? It's not about how much money you got in your pocket. Not about what type of car you drive, right? Not about the clothes you wear, right? Show thyself to be a man by keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, right? Then, what did we read earlier? When you keep the law, statutes, and commandments, anything that you ask of, he will give you of your desire. So if you want that house, you want that car, right? That comes with it. That's just the extra stuff that comes with just obeying the Most High God, right? But a lot of times we want to put the material things before the spiritual things, right? But it says, I go the way of the earth, and be thou strong thereof, and show thyself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord thy God, and walk in his ways, and keep his statutes, and his commandments, and his judgments, and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou wouldst do, right? So if you want to prosper, you want your relationship to prosper, you want everything to be cool, it just told you what to do. It says, show thyself a man, and keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his commandments, and to keep his statutes and his commandments, right? Then jump down a little bit, and it says, And as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou may prosper in all that thou doest, and whether so ever thou turnest thyself. So, that's going to help out a lot in your relationship. If y'all center your relationship on God and keeping the commandments, centerfold, right? And then it says that thou may prosper in all that thou may doest. That's what's going to keep your relationship passing that statistic. Where they say most divorces, happen like within the first 5 years or something like that, right? So that's what's going to help you pass that threshold, right? Keeping God first. Understanding keeping the commandments is the love of God, and that's how we show our love. And the commandments tell us how to treat one another, right? The Most High God instructs us how to deal with one another, right? So then it says, let's get Ephesians real quick. Because again, we got to understand, like, as men, right? This is how we should treat our women. And women have to understand, like, it's okay for a man to, feel this way, right? And it's okay to allow that to be, right? Let's get Ephesians 5 and 15 real quick. Let's see, boom, boom, boom. No, 5 and 25. But let's start at 21. I feel like starting a little trouble. Let's start at 21, right? So, it says, and this is the key part, right? And I'm putting this on the women, because women hear this word and then they go crazy, right? But then we forget about this verse here also, because then, also men, they hear that word and they go crazy also, right? But it says this, submitting yourselves one to another, right? So, meaning submitting yourself to one to another, meaning don't be at odds with each other. Don't be, looking for a conflict with one another, right? Don't be like, all right, this person said this, all right, I'm just going to be opposite just because, right? Because a lot of times people misunderstand the word submit, right? Because they take the word submit as, okay, yes, a master, no master. No. Submit in this context just mean be on one accord and don't bump heads with each other. Don't try to look for a reason to be at odds, right? Be even. Be even flow. Go, But a lot of times people have a hard time with going with the flow, especially our women folks, right? Have a hard time with going with the flow. And that's why we read those verses earlier. It says, be continually, what does it say? Just hold on. It says, but be continually with a godly man, who thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou miscarry. So it's all about picking, right? So I know kind of, we focusing on the guys, but I got to get on the women too. So it's almost like picking too, right? And a lot of times we're not good at picking, someone for ourselves, right? So a lot of times we end up picking, we wonder why we end up picking the wrong person, because we're not vetting these people that we, getting. You end up being in a horrible relationship. You get out that relationship, then you find about 3 more like it. And because it's all about vetting and understanding the person first, right? And understanding this verse right here. But be continually with a godly man, who thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou miscarry. Right? So, getting back to over here, submitting yourselves to one another in the fear of the Lord. right? So, like I said, being on one accord, not fighting with one another, right? Then it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husband as unto the Lord. Right now, that's an important verse right there. And I understand a lot of our people have a problem. This, you know, it's a term that they use. I be hearing on the internet when they call women that is actually doing what the Lord say. They call them pygmies or something like that, or some. I don't know. I think I'm saying it right. Right, but it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your husband, your own husband, as unto the Lord. Meaning, like I said, it's an order, right? And let's get that real quick. Let's get that really quick. Let's go to Corinthians. Let's go to Corinthians. Where is that? Is it boom, boom, boom? I think it's in hold on. Bear with me, hold on. Here we go, right here, 11. So let's start at 3. 1 Corinthians 11 and 3. But I will have you know that the head of every man is Christ, right? So this is the order. The head of every man is Christ. And the head of every woman is the man. And the head of Christ is God. So the order is God, Christ, man, woman, child, right? So back over here when we see, it says, and because a lot of people don't understand, like, God requires, order, right? Everything is done in decency and order, like it says. And it's not to say that because a lot of people would take that and be like, because we have this feminist movement, right, that's destroying the minds of our people. And so they try to equate that with equality and all that stuff, right? And it has nothing to do with being, like, with people equal or whatever, right? But it's the spiritual thing. That's how God, order it. And that's what keep things in order, right? If we keep the order of how God described it. So it says over here, back over here. So it says, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husband as unto the Lord. So, like I said, but if you have a godly man, someone that, you can trust and all that stuff, right? Because a lot of times I hear women say, well, yeah, I'll submit if I'm, to the right man, right? And it's like, you wouldn't say these things if you were laying down with every man that you come across versus, let me get to know this person first. Then I can see what type of guy this guy is, right? So then you won't have to worry about if you're submitting yourself to someone that's not worthy or not, right? But it says, as unto the Lord. Meaning, like I said, just like how the Bible says that Sarah was not ashamed to call Abraham Lord, right? Which is, so, but a lot of our women, you know what I'm saying, they don't even want to say sir, right? Or there's no politeness at all, right? But, so, we got to understand, like, there's nothing wrong with loving your husband and loving that man and, and how that Beyonce song and them go cater to him, right? There's nothing wrong with it. Like, what it says? Says, submit yourselves unto your own husband as unto the Lord. The same way you submit yourself unto the Lord, submit yourself to that man, right? Don't be that rebellious spirit woman that you just want to, I'll do what I want, you know what I'm saying? Can't nobody tell me what to do, right? It's crazy. Don't do that. That's out of order. It's not according to God, right? And it's a lot of old women that's like 60 something years old that when it was 40 and 30 and 20 said, can't no man tell me what to do. And we see where they at. They're single and they're miserable and they mean and they old, right? Don't be that way. It says, for the husband is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church, right? And he is the savior of the body, because that's the job of the husband, to protect that woman, to love that woman, to nurture that woman, just like Christ loved the people, right? You're supposed to love your woman like Christ loved the people, and you protect her. You don't let no harm come to her, just like Christ wouldn't let no harm come to the people, right? That's how you do it, right? And it goes on to say, therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husband in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church. So men, love your woman like Christ loved you, right? That's how you do it. And you know what Christ did. We all know the story. How deep his love went, right? So that's how we supposed to feel about our women. That's how we treat our women. At least that's how Israelites feel about their women, right? We'll die for our women, right? Every last one of them, right? So that's how a man's supposed to love his woman. Because what did Christ say? There's no greater love than he that is willing to give up his life for a friend, right? So, and it also, so it shouldn't be a problem knowing this. It should not be a problem for now for the women. Knowing this, it shouldn't be a problem to submit yourself to that man, right? Because that man is going to put his life on the line for you and make sure everything is how it's supposed to be, right? And but of course, it's an order. It's a flow. It's not a dictatorship, right? Because everybody have a part to play, right? Everybody has, a role to play. Just like, certain things that he can do that you can't do, in, certain situations, throughout the relationship and vice versa, right? So it's all about understanding our, what we're good at, right? And like I said, and let's get hold on one second. Now let's keep reading. So it says, therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, let the wives be to their own husband in everything. Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. That's what he did. He gave himself for it, right? And that's what we do, right? We give ourselves for our wives, for our children, right? For our family, right? And because a lot of times we live in this culture where we get with women and we lay with them and we just, like, all right, yeah, I hit that. Then we go to the next one and do the same thing. And there's no emotional connection, right? I was listening to, I'll be watching Cameron and Mace, they, It Is What It Is. And Cameron was talking about, like, when he like a woman, is like after they, have sex or whatever, if he still want to hang out with her. And so now it's funny and that's real in a lot of cases, right? But we don't have to go through those things if we understand what the Most High God say, how we should, do it, right? We don't have to go and try to, sniff every flower until we find the right one. If we do it how the Most High say do it, right? But a lot of guys that do that, right? A lot of guys, and then that's our fault too, because a lot of times, like I was telling someone, I'm like, guys is like a hunter, right? Men are hunters, and so when a guy meet a woman, typically, not saying no, not all, But typically, generally, a worldly man, his thought process is, how fast can I hit this? How fast can I get this girl in bed, right? And now it comes like this though. So he's thinking, if I get her in bed fast, then she's probably, a hoe, or she probably did this before, and I don't know how much I can trust her, right? Right? That's the flip side of it, right? So that's why, like, sometimes you be dealing with people, then you wonder why the person haven't called you, or they acting whatever type of way, right? Because that's the flip side, right? So now this is where we wrong at. So now we will meet a woman, and then we would play that game where, all right, I'm gonna get in her head, I'm gonna tell her all the good stuff to make her give me the draws as quickly as possible. Then once she do it, we hate her for it, because she believed the lies that we told her. Then we started treating her different, right? We started acting like, whatever, right? But we don't understand that it was our fault, because we decided to say, hey, I'm going to try to tell her the best stuff I can ever tell her to make her come out them clothes as quickly as possible. Right? Because that's what you want. But then when it worked, you like, dang, then you hate her for it, because you start thinking like, well, shoot, how many times she did that before? Right? So that's why, it's important to get to know people and understand people, right? And so it says, and husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and gave himself unto it, right? So again, we can't be using our women like rag dolls and just having sex with them and tossing them, right? And it says that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word, right? Because again, like the first verse we read, this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. And what is the commandment synonymous with? The word of God. So that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, and not having spot or wrinkles or such things. So again, going back to over here, but be continually with a godly man, who thou knowest to keep the commandments of the Lord, whose mind is according to thy mind, and will sorrow with thee if thou miscarry. Right? So it says, or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. So again, as a man, you want to, not that everybody's perfect and all that stuff. It's not that you're not going to make mistakes, but you want to be that man for that woman. Meaning, you want to do the things that you say, right? You want to live up to what you say that you said that you was going to do, right? Because women always going to test you, right? They always going to test, right? Because they want to see, are you who you say you are, right? Because they want to know, can they depend on you, right? They want to know, can they trust you? If their safety is being impeded, are you trustworthy? They want to know, if they fall down, are you going to be able to pick them up? They want to know these things. So they're going to test you. They're going to push your buttons. They're going to do little things, right? To see how you react, right? That's the nature of the game. But it says that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but it should be holy and without blemish. So meaning, you want to try to, check all the boxes, right? And not what I mean by check all the boxes, because we need to clarify that, right? Because we got some Lulus out there, right? What I mean, we got them crazies, you got them crazy women that want this super nigga out there that write poetry, that fight crime, that's a doctor, he's a lawyer, he fix things around the house, he take care of injured animals, he take her parachuting, all this amazing nigga type stuff, right? Not that type of, like, not that, but spiritually, right? You know what I'm saying? Basically, what I'm saying is be a man on your word, right? Stand on what you stand on, right? Because sometimes you might have to stand on some stuff that she might not agree with. She might not like you for standing on it. But at the end of the day, she's gonna respect you for standing on it, right? And you gotta understand that. So it says, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. So you gotta love her like your own body, meaning you wouldn't cause harm to her, right? Just like you wouldn't cause harm to yourself, right? And it says, he that love his wife love himself, right? There you go. Because just like you won't harm yourself, you won't harm your wife. And just like we read in 1 John, for this is the love of God, for how we know that we love the children of God, because again, we are the children of God, the Israelites, is when we love the children of God and when we keep his commandments, right? So, then it says, for no man, then it says, for no man ever yet hate his own flesh, but nourish it and cherish it, right? And that's what you do, right? You know, if you're out in the wilderness, right, by yourself, you're going to do everything to survive, right, to make sure you live another day, right? So just like you're going to do all the things to try to make sure you live another day, you know, you put that energy into that woman, that relationship, right? And it says, for no man ever yet hate his own flesh, but nourish it and cherish it, even as the Lord the church, right? So that's what we do, right? So we don't hate our own flesh, right? And again, it goes back to the commandments that thou shalt not bear any grudges or hate thy neighbor, and your neighbor is your Israelite. It's not Bob and Tom that stay across the street from you, or you go to work or the grocery store. Not that guy, right? Your neighbor is the one that is your fellow Israelite, right? So let's get let's go to Genesis, right? Genesis 2. Let's go to Genesis 2 and 24. So Genesis 2 and 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh, right? So again, so you know, of course, when y'all have that sexual encounter, you become one flesh. Your soul becomes intertwined, right? And of course, you know, that one flesh, that child being born, but also spiritually speaking, being on one accord, right? You know, submitting yourselves to one another, like we read in Corinthians, right? And so it says that therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall become one flesh, right? Like we read into, like I said, right? Like we can read into in Corinthians when it's talk about you know what I'm saying, loving one another, right? And submitting yourselves to one another. Not Corinthians, Ephesians. So then let's go to 24. Genesis 24 also. Let's jump up to 24. And 24 and 67, right? So it says, and Isaac brought her unto his mother's Sarah tent, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. Right? So this is our foremothers, you know what I'm saying, and our forefathers, you know, Isaac and Rebekah, right? Then and she became his wife, and he loved her, and Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So now, you know, our dear mother Sarah, she died, right? So now Isaac had his wife to comfort him, right? Because it says a woman is a pillar of rest, right? Well, she should be, right? If she can come home to a peaceful house, right? So through Rebecca, he was comforted. He was able to be comforted, through the death of his mother, right? And so yeah, that's and that's how we treat. It's a trade-off, right? Like I said, because just like she's that pillar of rest, where we can, after, because like when you out in the streets and you fighting the world, right? You got the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? You want to come home to a nice, soft woman, right? You don't want to have to come home to a vicious woman that's, trying to cut your throat and argue with you, right? Because you did all that fighting out there. You want to come home and relax, right? And that's what our ancestor Isaac had in his time of need when he was going through it. He had a nice woman, our foremother Rebecca, to comfort him in his time of need, right? Let's get Proverbs, right? Let's go to Proverbs. Because again, you got to understand. As Bernie Mac said, I don't think you understand. So, let's go to Proverbs 15. Right? And that's why it's important, right? Because we got to understand the importance of our women, right? Our women. All 12 tribes. From from Issachar to all the way to Reuben. Every last one of them, right? Gorgeous, beautiful women, right? There's no woman in the world that's more gorgeous than a Israelite woman, right? Can't find one, right? No one. Even the other nations know it. That's why our women is always the standard of beauty. Even though they put that little dirty, funky, nasty dog on TV, you know what I'm talking about. And they try to act like that's the thing. But we know what's really going on, because that little nasty, dirty, funky dog they put on TV, they try to look like our women, right? So we know what's going on. That's why the Bible tells us this: drink water out of thy own cistern, and running waters out of thy own well. Meaning, we have the most beautiful women ever, right? There's no need to go get you one of them, right? No need. I mean, look what we got. If you want to break it down, I mean, just on this side of the world, what we know, we can our Latino and Spanish sisters, our Caribbean sisters, our Native American sisters, and of course our beautiful African American sisters, right? So, I mean, what do we want? I mean, that's why it says, drink water out of your own cistern, and running waters out of thy own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and the rivers of water in the streets. Meaning, you know what I'm saying? When you deal with your own people, you find you a woman of your own stock, your own, ethnicity, so to speak, an Israelite, right? So you share in common understanding, because we understand this thing right here, right? And it says, let thy fountains be dispersed abroad in the rivers of water in the streets, right? So then you grow with that woman, right? You know what I'm saying? Y'all grow and y'all water, and y'all flourish, right? Together, right? But oftentimes you have weak Negroes, what I like to call them, that, like, man, I hate the black woman mouth, right? She got a bad mouth, blah, 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 blah. But over here at the Covenant of Zealots, we tame that mouth over here, right? We straighten out that black woman mouth over here, right? So that's a weak mentality that, all right, well, I'm gonna go deal with her because she's a little more nice. She's gonna do everything I tell her to do, right? That's crazy, right? But that's what the thought process, a lot of those people are like, well, the black woman, she's always angry and she's always cursing me out, right? Then they go get Becky, who go slit his throat while he sleep and chop him up and put him in the trunk somewhere, right? So, I mean, what you gonna do? I mean, you want to get killed or you want to get cursed out? Right? You better figure it out. So, it says, let thy fountains be dispersed abroad in the rivers of water in the streets, right? And it says, let them be only thy own and not strangers with thee. So don't be trying to, be like, well, love is love, it's all good, right? Nah. Because it just told you, drink water out of your own cistern, right? Then it says, let thy fountains, it says, let them be only thy own and not strangers with thee. Because oftentimes when we do end up dealing with these strange women, right? I was talking to this guy, right? And he was telling me that he has some sons and they deal with those people, right? And he says, like, he speaks so down about, like, black people and black women, right? All of a sudden. So I'm talking to him and I'm telling him, like, well, usually the side effect is when you're dealing with those people, you tend to end up hating your people because they secretly hate your people. So then you start finding things, about your people to dislike. Because if you have one of them and you go out somewhere and there's some nice, beautiful Israelite women everywhere, right? You're gonna have your head down, like, oh man, I don't want her to see me looking at them. She's gonna think I done jumped back over, right? I don't want back over to the other side. So you keep your head down. Then you start indoctrinating yourself, like, well, yeah, the black woman is loud and she wears weave and blah 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 blah, right? That's what you do, right? So, and that's what happens a lot of times, right? Look at that guy a few months ago, I think over the summer, that used to be on TikTok or YouTube, and he was married to that white woman, and he used to, brag about white women, how they smell like lemon juice, right? And how glorious they are, and how trash black women is, and all that stuff, right? I think we remember that, right? Some of us, right? The white woman killed him, okay? That's what she did. And put him in a suitcase. That's what happened, right? That glorious angel cake of a white woman. That's what happened to him, right? That's why I told you, drink water out of your own cistern and running water out of thy own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad and the rivers of water in the streets. Let them be only thy own and not strangers with thee, right? So that's what we do. We bring strangers with us, right? And then we wonder why we end up in this trouble. Jonathan Major brought a stranger with him, right? Then they're about to almost lost his whole Hollywood career. And he was running from her, right? He was getting away from that little evil white woman. That's what he was doing. But he still got arrested. And then they lost, and losses, he can't even do Marvel no more. He not, what's dude named Khan the Conqueror, right? He ain't conquering nothing now, right? So that's crazy, right? So it says, let thy fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth, right? So, meaning, like I said, you grow with the woman. You learn each other, right? Because a lot of times, because I hear people say, well, I want to have more experience. There's no experience. I got to get some experience. I got to go and do this and do that and have this and have that. Because I need experience. That's what I need, right? But here's the thing. All those little freaky, icky, thinky things that you want to imagine and experiment in your head, you're supposed to do it with that man, with that woman, right? Not go, well, let me go try to figure out, let me go get, that person is doing it, so let me go over there because they're doing it. Nah, because sometimes what it is, we can talk real, right? We can talk. Sometimes people be having stuff in their head, ideas in their head, right? And then they might think that their partner might not be with it. So then, or they might not want to say, expose it to their partner. So then they go find somebody else that will, that can do it, right? And then instead of, never know. Have the conversation with the partner, right? You never know what they're comfortable with, right? And then y'all can experience that thing together, right? Instead of you know, doing a whole bunch of everything, right? But that's how, typically, generally stuff go, right? And that's just how it plays. But it shouldn't be like that. Let's get hold on, let's keep reading. And it says, let her be as the loving hen and pleasant road, and let her breast satisfy thee at all times, right? So, you want to, keep that love for your woman, right? Keep that, that spirit. A lot of times, we get bored, or, we get, we lose the the spark, right? But you always got to keep that spark, right? You know what I'm saying? Even if every now and then you might have to bow, tap her on the ass every now and then, right? Every now and then, right? Take her down in the kitchen sometimes. That works. While she cooking, washing dishes, go in there, right? Gotta keep the spark going, right? And because a lot of times we, lose that, and that's the thing too, and that's why relationships have to be based off of, not just emotions, and how you feel and what's this and what's that. It got to be based off of commitment and duty, right? And that's what we forget. Commitment and duty, right? We all think about love and happiness, right? We base our relationships off of Al Green. Love and happiness. That's what we base it off of. Not understanding that those are emotions, right? I mean, emotions come and go, right? All the time. Some emotions last longer than others, but it comes and goes, right? So people don't be married for 50, 60 years because they got Al Green playing in the background. Love and happiness. That's not what's going on. They have commitment and duty, right? They have a system, right? They figured it out, right? They said, look, we're going to figure this out, right? And that's how it works. So that's why it says, where that, boom, boom, boom. Let thy fountains be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as the loving hen, as pleasant roe, and let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love, right? So, and that's the thing, you want to, of course, you want to always, feel that love with that woman, right? And then it says, be ravished with her love, right? Like I said, be on it, right? You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times, and I understand too, as guys get older, they testosterone level drop, and they might not be so forward and all that stuff. But you gotta keep the spark going, right? Where we at? Let's get Corinthians. Do I want Corinthians? Do I want this one? I don't know. Let's see. The one. Hold on, I think it might be. Bear with me one sec. What is it? Hold on. I think it's in Colossians, matter of fact. That's what I think it is. There is Colossians. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, man, boom, boom. Oh, yeah, 1 second, boom. Okay, yeah. Colossians 3:19. So it says, start at 18. It says, wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands, your own husbands, as it is fit in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them. Right? So, and again, so going back to, 'cause a lot of times, going back to how some guys might interpret the word submit, right? And, we already kind of explained too about how some of our women, might interpret it, and it's not talking about that. It's talking about being on one accord and not bumping heads. So, a lot of guys might interpret that word submit, and then they turn into a dictator, right? And you end up, ruling over your woman with an iron fist, right? And the Bible says, don't be a lion in your own house, right? So you don't have to be that roaring lion, in the household, right? So it's nothing, because a lot of times people don't know how to set order or have order, establish order without rah, 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 right? And, or, something becoming domestic, you know what I mean? So it says, husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them. So meaning, although, this woman, she's being submissive to you, right? Don't be abusive and be like, oh, well, do this and do that and blah, blah, blah. And or just being, like I said, just being very unruly, being a person that's hard to be around, right? Being causing her stress and anguish, right? The kids hate when you come home, right? Because you gonna come home liquored up and, probably curse everybody out, right? So it says, husbands, love your wives and be not bitter against them, right? So be kind to your wife, right? Love your wife, right? And don't just walk over and treat her like a doormat just because some women are more reserved and more softer than others. They might not be as robust in some, right? So then some guys may take advantage of that, right? But don't be that guy, right? Because the Bible says supposed to love, the weak, right? And in that case, she's weak in far as like she's not like as pronounced or more forward as you. She's a little more okay, yes, okay, a little more reserved. So don't take advantage of that, right? What is what we saying is what it's saying, right? Let's keep going. Matter of fact, Genesis says, yeah, let's keep going. No, matter of fact, let's get Genesis again. Go ahead and go back to Genesis. Go Genesis, right? Genesis 2:25. Wait, no, I don't want Genesis. No. Matter of fact, no, not Genesis. Genesis, boom. Genesis 23, 2 and 23. So again, not understanding you can't just be, don't be abusive, right? Don't be Ike Turner, right? Don't be just being mean and aggressive for no apparent reason, right? I was watching this video of this guy. I think they were, could have been Chicago, matter of fact. So it was some Israelite brothers on a doing their thing. And some people walked by, and this guy, a lady stopped to listen for a hot second. And dude, didn't want her to listen to the Israelite brothers. Then instead of him just, doing it in a more cordial way, the dude, grabbed her by the back of the neck and just like like on some rough house type stuff, and just dragged her away from the camera, right? So you can't be like that, right? You gotta understand this. This is Genesis 2:23. And Adam said, "Now this is my bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man." Right? So without getting all super deep with it, we come from, we are, the same people, right? We are Israelites, right? So when it says flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone, meaning we are the same kindred, same ethnicity, right? So I shouldn't mistreat this person, different, because we are the same people. Because like it tells us over here, right? Can we get it real quick? Is that all right? Really quick. Boom. Like it tells us in Leviticus over here. If I can just get it for the people. Right here, Leviticus 19, it tells us in 19:7, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart, thou shalt not in any wise, thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and suffer not sin upon him. Thou shalt not revenge or bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am the Lord. Right? We read that, right? Already. That's the law, right? Paul was teaching us how to love each other and tell us we love each other like we love ourselves, right? So over here it says, and Adam said, now this is my bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, right? So that bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh is, I know how they, like I said, I didn't want to get all deep. I know how they teach it, right? But it's just talking about being of the same people, the same tribe, because that's where Eve came from. She was a woman of the same tribe. And so we are Israelites of the same tribe. And we need to treat each other as such, right? And that's why it tells us, do not, be bitter towards your wife, towards your woman, right? Because she is flesh of your flesh, bone of your bone, right? Of your same people. And why that's important? Because God told us, thou shalt not, what it says? It says, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thy heart, thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and suffer not sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear grudges against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. I am Yahweh. Right? So that's why all of that's important. Because it goes back to keeping the law. Because like the very first verse we read was, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. Or, what's the other one? Like, for we know that we love the children of God, because we know we are the children of God, the Israelites, the Black, Hispanic, and Native American people. If we love God and keep his commandments. Right? So, and it all goes back to how we treat one another, right? So, boom. And let's get Proverbs. Boom. Let's go back to Proverbs, right? Proverbs 5:15. Proverbs 5:15, right? And it says, drink water out of thy own cistern, and running water out of thy own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and the rivers of water in the streets. Let them only be of thy own, and not of strangers, right? Because flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. Nigga, get down like that's right. Because you're supposed to deal with your own people, right? Just like Adam did. He dealt with someone from his own tribe, because he said, what did he say? This is now bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man, right? And of course, like I said, we're not gonna get all deep into it. Just understand they came from the same tribe, right? It wasn't no no surgery going on, right? No anesthesia being administrated and surgery happening. It wasn't happening, right? So let's get Malachi. All right, let's go to the book of Malachi, chapter 2. And verse 14. Yet ye say, where therefore? Because the Lord hath been witness between thee and between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. Right? So God is watching, right? Although this is, the Most High is speaking to the children of Israel, and he's using this as a metaphor for our relationship with him. But on the flip side, on the spiritual side, God is watching how you deal with that woman, right? And vice versa. Then it says, all right, Matt, boom, boom, boom. Wait, hold on. It says, yet ye say, wherefore? Because the Lord hath witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou dealt treacherously. Yet she's thy companion. Yet she's thy companion and the wife of thy covenant. Right? So it's like, you make, when you marry that woman, right, you go into contract. That's a contract. That's a deal, right? And so, but then when you commit, certain types of acts of fornication, or, deal falsely with her, you know what I'm saying? You kind of, going against the contract of going against the, breaking the clauses, right, of that contract, right? So it says, boom, boom, boom. Oh, no. So it says, yet ye say, wherefore? Because the Lord hath been witness between thee and the wife of thy youth, against whom thou hast dwelt treacherously. Yet she's thy companion and the wife of thy covenant. So it's like, if you know a man he don't even treat his wife good, he's, cheating on his wife, he's, you see this guy, like, man, he doesn't treat that woman good. Like, I don't know why she's with him, right? You see these things. How can you trust a man like that? How can you say that he's going to treat you right? How can you go into business with that man, knowing that he went into basically marital business with that woman, and he did what he did, right? So that's, what it's saying, right? And it says, and yet did not he make one, and had the residue of the Spirit, and where, boom, 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 it says, and did not he make one, and yet the residue of the Spirit, and therefore one, that he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth, right? So then you want to also protect that woman, and don't let nobody deal treacherously with her, because our women need protection, right? The most unprotected person in America and in this world is the black woman, right? Very unprotected in many different ways, right? And our women are our women, so to speak, hold on, like, get this really quick, hold on. Matthew 9:5. So, what I'm saying? So our women need protection, right? And we gotta, provide that protection, because oftentimes we get caught up on just, trying to provide provisions, right? Just want to be the guy that has the money, right? But money is cool, everything. The Bible says money is a tool. But that's not the only function of a man. You also have to provide much more things, right? Than just that. And a lot of times we relegate ourselves to how much we have in our pocket, versus to what the Bible says what a godly man is, right? And moving on, it says, Matthew 19 and 5. It says, "And I said, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall twine, and shall be one flesh." Right? So, we read that, right? And it says, Therefore, no more twine, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let no man put asunder. And that's what happens a lot of times. We allow other people to come in our relationships and whisper certain things like, "Hey," right? Then before you know it, now you got all hell in your relationship because listen to that single girlfriend who don't have not one good relationship in her life, right? She's trying to tell you how to handle your life. And that's the thing. Shouldn't listen to people that don't have one good relationship in their life that they can point to, right? They at odds with their mother. They don't get along with their sister. Their friends don't like them too much because they keep sleeping with all they men, right? But then they want to give everybody advice, right? They're single, right? They always talking about how, such and such ain't whatever, right? So you don't want to listen to that person, right? And a lot of times we end up listening to people, or people comment on our relationships because they're jealous. And what women have to understand this. And it's going to be a hard pill to swallow because some people's going to deny it. They're not going to want to look at it and realize it. But when you look at it, take a step back and look at it. I'm going to free your mind real quick. Women secretly hate women. That's just what it is. Women don't like other women to be happy. A woman don't want you to be more happy than she's happy. It's cool. If she's happy, she's cool. If you're happy, that's cool. But don't be more happier than she is. Because then she's going to sabotage your relationship. Because she can't have your relationship more than her relationship. That's just that's not logical, right? So you have to understand these things. And that's what typically happens. And if you be honest, that's the truth, right? Let that person's relationship start going sour and see how they start to impede on your good relationship, right? Watch how it happens, right? It happens a lot, right? Because, like I said, secretly, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, they hate each other, right? And they don't want each other to be happy. That's just the sad truth. They pretend that they're happy, but they hate you, right? That's just what it is. That's the truth, right? And nobody told you. I'm telling you. So, and guys know, if guys know it to be true, because women hate for us to be happy, right? Let a man be having fun, and this woman not around. She gonna hate that shit. Like, nigga, you having fun, and I'm not included in it? Like, what's all this fun about, right? What's so funny? Why everybody laughing? Why the music so loud, right? We know how women is, because we don't have to be doing nothing. We can just pick up the phone, and have a little chuckle in our first 2 seconds of answering the phone. Oh, what's so funny? Oh, you sound like you're having fun over there, right? So we know that women don't like fun unless they involve in it. We're trying to help you out, right? So, moving on. Boom, boom, boom. So it says, therefore Therefore they are no more twined, but one flesh. Therefore God have joined together. Let no man put asunder. That's what a lot of people do. They allow outside forces to come and split things up, right? You know, it always that Satan, you know, like that serpent in the garden come in, that one friend. You know, you be telling, like, and I seen it happen because I watched it happen. You be talking about your new guy, be like, oh yeah, he's cool, he do this, he's great, blah blah blah, he's this, he's that. Then that one friend says this, and this is the Satan part. This is where the serpent in the garden come in. At the one friend says this though, but is you happy though? You know, they ask that question. That's when Satan plant the seed. That's when that seed get planted into that woman's head. When that one friend asks that one question, but is you happy though? And then that's when your mind start racing. Dang, okay, I'm happy. But then that's when you start rating your relationship on how happy you are, right? And this is where the selfishness come in at. And I gotta say this, because for some, I don't know how it happened, but women have been programmed that happiness is everything, right? I don't know if it's Disney, Hollywood, or what happened, but I know it all boils down to happy. And if that happy is not there, they will burn everything down, because the happiness is gone. I've seen it happen. Family's gone. Children, fuck them, right? Because I'm not happy, right? And that's the dangerous seed. That's a very powerful seed that Satan, you know, can plant, right? And it grows. Because you got to understand, the most infectious disease is a idea, right? Once somebody plant that idea, you know, you might not think about it that day, but then it might come, and you be like, you know what? Am I happy? You know, like he's doing this and he's doing that. I mean, he's happy, but what about me? Then you start turning to a damn Aisha Curry. That's what you're gonna be, right? Start turning to Aisha Curry, right? Like, woman, you have hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, what do you want to be happy about? Well, the hundreds of millions of dollars, I go buy me some happiness. I go buy me some sunshine, god dang it. Right? What are you talking about? Right? $100 million, you can go find you some happiness. Right? So chill. Right? So don't be an Aisha Curry. Bow. Shots fired. Alright, so then it says, they say unto him, why do Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and put away? And he said unto them, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart, suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning was not so. Because it was not so, right? Because God made us to be together, right? Not to divorce. Because a lot of times we divorce because you don't like the person no more, right? It's foolish stuff or whatever, and what they say, irreconciled differences, right? I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication. That's where the divorcement come in at. Fornication. And it says, and shall marry another and committeth adultery. So is pastor telling you this? When pastor telling you, yeah, leave that nigga, kick him out the house, right? Leave him alone, right? Is pastor telling you that Christ is telling you, if you leave that man, other than for a fornication, you are committing adultery, huh? Pastor don't tell you that, because the game is single women has more extra income to disperse amongst this church. So they would tell you whenever it's clever, yeah, leave that nigga out the house. They use that scripture, can two walk together unless one agree, right? And that has nothing to do with a man and woman relationship, but of course, They would use it for that. And, and the plan is to get the single woman dollar. That's what it's all about. Because if she have a man around, he's going to tell her, hey, baby, we're not giving our church that money. We need that money to do this, right? And the pastor don't need that man around to say that, because that's taking money out of his pocket, right? So, of course, he would tell you to leave that man and not tell you what Christ is telling you. If you do leave that man for any other reason other than fornication, you're committing adultery. And you're becoming a sinner, right? And well, you are a sinner, right? So, Ecclesiasticus, right? Matter of fact, Colossians. Let's go to Colossians really quick. Colossians chapter 12, right? Not Colossians. Chronicles, I believe. Hold on. Corinthians. I think. Hold on, let me figure it out. Hold on. Gotta remember exactly. Okay, yeah, Corinthians. My bad. Corinthians 12 and 22. So it says, yea, much more those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary. So, of course, how to say our better half, right? The woman is necessary, right? Can't live with them, can't live without them, right? But the woman is necessary, right? So it says, nay, much more of those members of the body which seem to be more feeble are necessary, because the softness, the femininity of the woman is necessary, to balance, that man out, right? Because you don't want to be all, like I said, so you got to have that woman that can, give you that element of softness, right? So you can, have what they call the pillar of rest, right? So you can have a place to chill and relax. So you don't have to be, on go mode all the time, ready for war, right? You can be around your woman and you can be chill, right? So it says, much more of those members of the body which seem more feeble are necessary, and those members of the body which we think to be less honorable, upon these we bestow more abundantly, and honor and our uncomely parts we more abundantly comeliness. So basically, instead of this walking over our women because our muscles are bigger and we just have the power to do so, we recognize the softness and the femininity of that woman, so we protect it, right? We honor it, we keep it sacred, right? So that's why oftentimes that's why a lot of guys hate when a woman be all rough and all that stuff, because guys usually like softer, you don't have not to be like super soft, and you know what I mean, but just someone that's not rah, right? Talking like what's old girl from The Wire, Snoop, you know what I'm saying? Talking like Snoop, you know what I'm saying? Like, like imagine laying in the bed, somebody talking to you like Snoop, like, man, what's up, Joe? You know what I mean? We gonna do this shit or what? You know what I'm saying? That shit ain't cool, right? So, no. Right? Yeah. So so it's required, right? And we should protect it and honor it, right? And not, misuse it or, step over it, right? We protect it. And that's what keep our women soft, right? And that way they won't be so, 'cause a lot of guys complain about how, aggressive or manly, some of our women is, but then we also have to, you know, show them how to, treat them like a woman, right? Then you put them in that feminine spot, in that place, then that will, and that will bring down that femininity, right? Then they, won't be so rough, how some may say. Okay, let's get Ecclesiastes, right? Hold on, just read this one more time. It says, "For our comeliness parts have no need, but God hath tempered the body together, having given more abundant honor to that part which is lacked." So again, that's why it says that the woman is our helpmate, right? And to help, right? To help out, to help us in those areas that we may lack, right? For our shortcomings. Just like how they say, can two walk together unless they agree? Because if one fall, the other would be the other one's crutch, right? So that helpmate, right? So, because sometimes a man gets sick, right? So you get older, right? You get older. You need somebody to keep up with the medicine, right? Help you. You might not be good at doing the doctor appointments. You got to get you to the doctor appointment, right? So, we got to understand that we need each other for what the things that we need each other for, and we're both not disposable, right? We got to understand that. Ecclesiastes, let's go to 28. And 24, and it says, look that thou hast thy possession, right? Hold on. Okay, now let me read it. It says, so look that thou hast thy possession about with thorns, and bind up thy silver and gold, right? That's what your woman is, your silver and gold. And you protect that, right? A lot of women, they be like, well, he don't want me to go nowhere, right? I can't talk to nobody, right? I can't wear this, I can't do this, I can't do that. But not understanding that man loves you, right? Now, of course, there's a difference between obsessiveness and all that other crazy stuff, right? We're not talking about that. We're talking about in moderation, of course, right? So, so it says, where is that? No, hold on, I lost the spot. Boom. So it says, look down the heads of thy possession about with thorns, and bind up thy silver and gold, right? So that's what you want to do. You want to protect your woman, because your woman is that silver and gold. But oftentimes in this society, sex is so devalued, like women is so devalued in our culture to like a point. It's like a sport. Like we try to see how many we can have sex with, right? We play these games and stuff instead of honoring the woman for what the woman is, right? Like ancient cultures used to go to war, right? I mean, we all heard of that the story of Troy, right? The movie with what's that dude? Brad Pitt, you know what I'm saying? Troy. So they went to war over a woman, right? So we gotta understand the importance of the black woman, right? Of the Israelite woman, and how we ought to be with one another, right? So it says, look thou and hast thy possession about with thorns, and bind up thy silver and gold, and weigh thy words in the balance, and make the door in the bar of thy mouth, right? So be a man of your word and stand on it, right? Also, right? And give her instructions that's gonna, that's gonna instill in her brain, like, all right, even if you're not around, you don't have to worry about, okay, because some guys, when a wife or a woman leave, be blowing up her phone, worrying about, if she got some man genitals around her vicinity, right? Like, what you doing? Where you at? What you doing, right? But, instilling that information into that woman, teaching her who she is as a woman of God, right? And, giving her instructions, putting that hedge around her, that protection, right? With knowledge and wisdom, right? Building her up spiritually. You don't have to worry about if she goes out there and if she's gonna, have sex about 11 times before she come back home, right? Because you know that is a daughter of Zion, that is a daughter of the Most High, that is a woman of God. And she knows the same thing. Because she follows the commandments. Because like the very first few scriptures we read was about how to love one another. And we love one another by keeping the commandments. And one of the commandments is, thou shalt not commit adultery. So she understands that. So she's not going to go and be with this guy and that guy and that guy and every other guy. She understands that, right? Because what you do, this is what you did. It says, look that thou hast thy possession about with thorns, and bind up thy silver and gold, and weigh thy words in the balance, and make a door and a bar for thy mouth. Meaning you put them words in her head and you make her understand this is what it is. This is how we live it, right? And that's just what it is, right? And it says, beware. And it says, beware thou slide not by it, lest thou fall before him and lie in wait. So you want to make sure you giving her the proper knowledge, right? And building her up spiritually properly. So when she go out in the world, right, then she's going to get enticed. She's going to get, confronted, with all this other stuff, right? Because it's niggers out there, right? And a lot of those niggers don't follow what's in this book, right? They can care less what's in this book. She can say, I got a man, and he'd be like, what they got to do with me? Like the song says, right? Then, like, what's that joke? Like, well, I told him I had a man, and he, and he pulled out a gun and made me give him his number anyway. But I forgot how the joke goes. I probably said it wrong. But, right? But when you when you're doing it properly, right? As the Most High say, and creating that hedge of protection, like I said, it says, beware not that thou slide by it, lest thou fall before him and lie in wait. So, so you don't have to worry about, she's going out and now she's getting tricked up on some stuff. Now she's coming back home telling you some crazy mess. It's like, hey, well, guess what? Blah, 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 blah. You like, and now you got to shut that down. Like, nah, baby, we ain't doing that. Or she, come, with some little crazy doctrine. Or, like I said, or some guy, that she done been talking to tell her some crazy stuff. And she, like, start doubting the stuff that you saying. It's like, it's crazy, right? So you have to build that protection in that hedge, right? Let's jump up to chapter 36, right? 36 and 24. And it said, he that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, a pillar of rest. So that's the thing, and a lot of women don't like that word, possession. I like saying it because I know they don't like hearing it. Possession, right? And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but we live in society where women tell women, don't let that nigga tell you what to do, right? And she's single and miserable, right? We just got done reading, what God bring together, let no man come asunder, right? But we let it all happen all the time, every day, because some friend is telling another friend, don't let that nigga tell you what to do, or oh, you really listening to that nigga? Oh, you a good girl. Oh my God. Oh, he must be really nice. He must be he must be really good, making you do everything. So then they start trying to ridicule you, make you feel bad for being a good woman, right? When they find out that you cooking or you doing this or you leaving early to do this or you're washing dishes, you're washing clothes, whatever you may do, that friend may say, oh, he must be special, right? Then they start trying to make you feel like you're doing too much for this guy, right? That's what happens. That's called hating, right? That's called letting a man come and put a cinder with the Lord put together. And women do that all the time, right? That's why men always talk about their girlfriends, friends and stuff, and how they like to start stuff, right? Because we see it, right? That's why I said earlier, women secretly hate women to be happy. They don't want you to be more happier than they are, right? That's crazy to them. So it says this. Read it one more time. It says, he that getteth a wife begins a possession, a help unto himself, a pillar of rest, right? And that's all we want, a pillar of rest, right? Someone that we ain't gotta fight and argue with, right? Someone that we can relax, right? But again, we live in a society where, that should be a good thing. Because we just read that a godly man, if you is his possession, he's going to put his life on the line for you. Because he's going to love you like Christ loved the church. We read that, right? And that's what Paul is teaching us in that chapter there. So to be a possession of a godly man is a great thing, right? That's a good thing. That's a blessed thing, right? To be, right? Because it says, he that getteth a wife beginneth a possession, a help like unto himself, a pillar of rest. Where no hedge is, their possession is spoiled, right? So you have to put that possession, you have to put that protection there. You have to put that wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, into that woman, right? Because a lot of times, guys talk about how they woman, be watching TikTok videos and watching those little so-called relationship guru dudes talking crazy, and now they get, now they off of TikTok, now they cursing out their guy for some stuff, right? And I was joking with a friend of mine. We was talking about that because I was there. I was there to witness it, right? Girl watching TikTok, got off TikTok, started fussing at him, and I'm looking like, and I told her, I'm like, that's not your life, right? Like the stuff that you just got done watching and with those people so-called experiencing and going off about, you don't live that. So why are you getting upset? But it happens like that sometimes. So, but you gotta have that protection, because a lot of times there's a lot of stuff out there that can influence and and alter people's output and their thought process and change a lot of things. So you gotta have that protection. So it says, where there's no hedge, there the possession is spoiled. So then now you worrying about, so now she done got with some guy and she got a baby by him now. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the possession was spoiled, right? Or now, she done crept off with some other, guy when you thought everything was cool. Because it says where there's no hedge, because you didn't put that knowledge and wisdom and understanding and that protection around that woman and make her understand who she is and what she is, right? She want to be, living worldly because she thinks that that's the life, right? You're supposed to be out here, quote unquote single, in which today's society, single means have sex with as many people you can have sex with, and then when you finally get ready to settle down, then you're gonna find somebody that's gonna accept you for all your past, if you choose to tell them, right? So backwards. So it says, where there is no hedge, the possession is spoiled, and he that has no wife will wander up in the morning, and will wander up and down in the morning. So that guy, you like, man, don't be, you trying to warn your girl, hey, don't talk to that guy. That guy, I don't trust him. I think he trying to, do what, trying to have, trying to have sex with you or whatever, right? So it says, he that has no wife will wander up and down in the morning. So then, we know this, as men, we know this. That's why we be on it with our women, right? And be so upset. Because we know, and women know this too, Because, like, you got those guys, that will ask their girl, hey, hey, somebody, anybody try to holler at you today? They be like, no, nobody try to talk to me. Right? No, damn well about 50, 11 dudes done holler at you before you even got out the front door. Right? Before you even walk. That's what guys do. I've seen it happen. Right? One after another. There can be a whole line of women walk past. They gonna holler at least every other one. Right? And because women get hit on all the time. Right? And that's just the nature of the business. So, and guys know that women get hit on all the time. But that's where it comes to establishing that hedge, that protection, that wisdom, that knowledge, right? Letting her understand that she's a woman of God, and how a woman of God carry themselves, right? So then you don't have to worry about where it says that he that has no wife will wander up and down in the morning. So you ain't got to worry about that guy that's, might be trying to, holler at your girl because she ain't around you, or when she leave the house, because she knows what's expected of her as a woman of God, right? So let's get then who will trust a thief? And it says, who will trust a thief well appointed, that skip from city to city, so will believe a man that have no house, and lodge whatever he might take it with him. So you have these guys that, how they say nowadays, hobosexuals, hobosexuals, say they, will try to get with a woman just so they can have a place to stay, right? So they can, and that's how they roll. What they call them, Rolling Stones. Papa was a Rolling Stone, right? They always getting kicked out of somebody's house, right? We know these guys. They always getting kicked out of some woman's house, right? Always got to call their friend to come pick them up because they just got kicked out of somebody's house, right? So it says, who will trust a thief well appointed, right? So meaning this guy come around at the right time, right? Just shows up at the right time. You going through whatever you're going through. And here comes this guy, right at the right time. So it says, who will trust a thief well appointed, that skip from city to city, so will believe a man that has no house, and lodge wherever the night take him. So like I said, so you have these, what they call, for lack of a better term, hobosexuals, right? So, but then our women has to be guided in understanding, in understanding of how, to, if you encounter stuff like that, and how to deal with it, right? That's why that hedge of protection, that knowledge, that wall of knowledge, that wall of wisdom has to be built around that woman, because women are so easy to be manipulated. That's how Eve was manipulated. Eve was manipulated with a suggestion. Like, did he really say that to you? Do you really think he gonna die? like, you surely you won't die, right? So then she thought about it, like, just like how a lot of our women do, when, cause cause Eve was a black woman. We know how black women is, cause they say, well, damn, if then why would he lie to me then, right? If why, it must be something about this that he don't want me to know. So that's why he would tell me not to deal with that tree. Don't deal with that tree in the garden. So maybe it is something to this, right? So then that seed get planted, right? So now that woman think, well, it must be something to this. That's why he don't want me to do it. So I'm gonna do it anyway to figure out what it is, right? So that's why you need that hedge of protection, because just as something as simple as that can mess up everything. Just a simple suggestion, just a seed of doubt, right? Just to plant the little seed of doubt, like maybe your husband is lying, maybe your husband is not who just maybe that man, just thoughts. That's what that best friend do sometimes when she lean over and ask you, but are you happy though, right? That's what's happening right there. You gotta understand that when they say, but is you happy? That's that seed being planted right there, right? So let's jump back to 25 and 19. So Ecclesiasticus 25 and 19. And it's saying, says, all wickedness is but little to wickedness of a woman, right? So now this is our dear brother Sirach, right? And he's explaining, this is what, and us men folk, we can contest to this. We understand this. If your heart ever been broken in this world, you know what's going on, right? So what did he say, right? What did our dear brother Sirach say? He says, all wickedness is but a little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. So we gotta, so that's why too, like, a woman can, hurt a man real deep, because, like I said, it's to a man, it's nothing more horrible than an unruly, wicked woman, right? That's unbearable to a man, right? And it says, all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman, but the portion of a sinner fall upon her, right? Let's jump to 26 real quick. Get this. In 23. And it says, a wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord. So again too, guys, a lot of times we talk stuff about how bad our woman is, or how bad our last relationship was, right? But we have to understand this verse right here. It says, a wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord, right? So you have to ask yourself a question. If you are in a relationship and that's with an unruly woman, because like our dear brother Sirach just told us, that, wickedness, where was it? Hold on. In 25, hold on, 20. And it says, all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. So we understand that according, to wisdom, like, that's the worst thing. And it says, 26, I don't know why this paper keep on sticking. 26 says, a wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman to him that feareth the Lord. So, again, you gotta just question yourself. You know, instead of just blaming this person, be like, okay, what is it about me that's unclean, that's got me into this bad relationship that I'm in, right? How did I end up in this another bad relationship? Like DJ Khaled say, another one. How did I get another one, right? So you got to understand this verse. A wicked woman is given as a portion to a wicked man, but a godly woman is given to him that feareth the Lord. It says a dishonest woman is contendeth shame, but a honest woman will reverence her husband, right? So, and that's that's the thing. That's what comes with building that hedge of knowledge and wisdom, that wall of protection, and building her up spiritually, right? And because it's not, like I said, it's not just how much money you got in your pocket, right? Because you got to provide not just financially, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, far as, physically, you know what I mean? And also protection, right? So, what else? Let's get Proverbs 18 real quick. Proverbs 18. Proverbs 18 says this for the people. Proverbs 18 and 22 says, Whoso findeth a wife find a good thing, and obtain favor from the Lord. Right? So it's a good thing to find a wife. Right? It's a good thing. Great thing. Right? But then here's the key part though. It says, whoso find a wife findeth a good thing. So that's a blessing. But a lot of times in the society we do it backwards, right? It's out of order. And we're a lot of people are not looking for the wife. You know what I'm saying? They're looking for the right now. And we're doing it backwards. So it says, whoso find a wife find a good thing. And it's a good thing to find a wife, because that's a blessing from the Most High. Then let's get Deuteronomy real quick. 23. Deuteronomy 23. Alright. Deuteronomy 23 and 17. So it says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel. Right? And that's the thing. So that's why it says that's why he read, he's that findeth a wife, findeth a good thing. So it's, but a lot of times we live in a society where it's it's casual sex until your stuff's shriveled up and now you want to get married, right? But it says, where it at? Boom, boom, boom. There shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel. Right? So, meaning, and how we do that as men is what they call one night stands, or you treating this woman like a what they call booty calls or something like that. Just get you get up for the night, whatever, right? But you treat her like a whore because you're not making her your wife, because you're not making her privy to all the benefits of a wife. You just having sex with her, then throwing her to the side, and next time you want to do it again, you do it again, right? And women do the same thing, right? They probably have a roster, a rotation of guys that they go through and be like, you know what? But doing the same thing, right? So it says, there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, nor a sodomite of the sons of Israel, right? So no whoredom and no homosexuality should not be running prevalently through our community, right? So, and a lot of times we, like I said, like the certain lifestyle choices we make or how society is pushed on us, we end up falling into these elements, and a lot of those things end up being detriment to, to us, and then into our relationships with people, right? But it says there shall be no whore of the daughters of Israel, and that's the thing. That's why we have to, deal with our women accordingly and understand that sex is marriage, right? And when you lie down with that woman, that's your wife, that's your woman, right? And unless she out here, sucking and humping, you gotta stay with her, right? And even if she do got a mouth or attitude, right? You gotta stay with her, unless she out here sucking and humping, right? So, thou shalt not bring a hire of a whore. Okay, now I need that. Then let's get 22, Deuteronomy 22 and 28. And it says, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin. So now this word virgin in Hebrew is talking about young woman. It's not talking about never had sex before. Just talking about a young lady, we can say between 18 and 25, right? So it says, if a man find a damsel that is a virgin which is not betrothed, and lay hold of her and lie with her, and they be found. So now let's put it in modern terms, right? Just fast forward just to 2025, right? So you out and about, you hollering at her, you see a chick, you hollering at her, you know what I'm saying? Whatever lies you done told her, she done believed it, gave you her number, and now y'all in contact with each other, right? So, so now y'all, in contact with each other. So it says, now if he lied with her and be found, so now y'all had sex, and then now y'all being seen out together. Now y'all the new couple. Everybody know that y'all together, right? Because they see y'all together, like, man, they gotta be doing something together. They always together, right? And it says, then the man shall the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he had humbled her, and he may not put her away all of his days. So meaning there's no casual sex, right? There's no one night stand, right? That's your woman, right? And so if you end up lying with her, like I said, then that's your girl. And so of course, then, but oftentimes, we get in these situations where we end up being with people, we hang out with them, then we end up having sex with them, and then we discover that we don't like them that much, right? So then now we don't want to be with them. Now we're finding every excuse not to be with them. But that's why it's important. If we only understood this from the beginning as a culture, and we wasn't alienated from our culture as a people through slavery and conquest, we would understand that sex is marriage. So when you do have sex with a person, you would think very carefully, should I put my thing in that or not? Because if I do it, this going to be my woman. And I'm going to have to deal with this person forever, ever. And do I want to deal with this person forever, ever? You would think about those things. We all think about it, right? If we were raised up in that, in that culture, right? How our ancestors was, and how God wanted us to be, and according to the law, right?
What's that?
So you will understand that.
What's that?
Hold on. You gotta hold on. So, you gotta understand that. Then, where we at with it? That's 28. So let's get First Timothy real quick, then we out. So, let's go to First Timothy real quick. Timothy. Remember that from South Park. Timmy! Go to First Timothy, chapter 5, right? And start right here. Let's start at the top. So it says, rebuke not the elder, but entreat him as a father and a younger man as a brethren. Right? So, talk to our older people. Get instructions, right? Get that wisdom. The elder woman as a mother and the younger as a sister with all purity. Honor the widow. Honor the widows that are widows indeed. But if any widow have children or nephews, let them learn first and show priority at home, right? So teach the widows, teach the children, right? And it says, and to requite their parents for that is good and acceptable before God, right? Then it says, now she that is a widow indeed and desolate trust in God and continue in supplication and prayer night and day, right? Then it says, but she that live in pleasure, and that's a lot of things. A lot of our women, they, want to live this lifestyle where, they want to be like the Cardi B's and all that stuff, right? The Glorillas and stuff. So it says that, but she that live in pleasure is dead while she liveth, right? So, a lot of people, they just want to just experience this, the fruits of life, right? And don't want to actually, put work in or, live a real life. They just want to just party all the time. What's that Eddie Murphy song? My girl like to party all the time. Party all the time. My girl like to party all the time. Right? But it says, but she that liveth in pleasure is dead while she liveth. Right? So you got to understand that. And it says, but all things give, it says all things give in charge that they may be blameless. But if any provide not for his own, especially for those of his own house, he is denied in faith and worse than an infidel, right? So, now this is talking about providing. Now it's not talking about provisions like money, because a lot of times people will take this verse and think it's talking about money. When it says, if any provide not for his own, especially for those in his house, he denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So what it's talking about, all the things that we just read beforehand. So if this man is not teaching the widows, he's not, being a father to the fatherless, right? He's not, he's not, being a spiritual leader to those that need it, or let me reverse it too, because if he's not, doing that for his own household, right, but he's doing that out in the streets, then, that's what it's saying, like if he's, doing it, for everybody else, but he's not taking care of his own household, then it says, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he have denied the faith and worse than an infidel, right? So you have to teach your woman this knowledge, this understanding, that build that hedge of wisdom, that wall of wisdom, that wall of knowledge around her, to give her that understanding of this book, and not explain to who she is, right? So, because again, this verse is not talking about money and provisions. It's talking about giving that woman wisdom and spirituality, right? And giving her the understanding of that wisdom and knowledge and spirituality. Then it says, but if any provide not for his own, but if you out there, you teaching the word of God to everybody else, and you trying to come off as this man of God, and you doing this stuff, but you're not taking care of the household, then it says, he have denied the faith and worse than an infidel, right? So the point is, my people, teach your woman the truth, right? And I'm going to say this word on purpose because I know they hate it. You got to train them in the right way. You know what I'm saying? And teach them how to be a woman of God, right? Teach them, this is what a woman of God is supposed to be. Be the Bible calls us to be priests, right? Every man is supposed to be a priest in his own house, right? So you got to understand that. And you got to teach the woman, guide the woman, love the woman, right? Protect the woman, because we love our women, right? So yeah, we love our women. And, and we love our women when we, give them the understanding of this book and teach them the proper way of how the Most High God says how we should, interact with each other. Because like we just read in that last verse, if you don't, provide these spiritual, understandings for your woman and give her, some type of spiritual guide, you are worse than a infidel, right? So we have to teach and, teach our women and all that stuff, right? And our women have to be willing to accept the teaching. That's why it says, wives submit thyself to your own husband, right? And it also says, submit thyself to one another. So we work together and don't be bumping heads, right? So that's how it goes. So hopefully that was edifying. We got a better understanding of this man and woman relationship and how God wants us to interact with each other. Someone say shalom, peace. Till next time, we out. Boom, shakalaka.